Okay, so whenever somebody joins, I can elevate.
Leak's coming in.
Yep, and so he's on, I just elevated him to a panelist so he can share video and sound if he wants. So I'm gonna go ahead and make Linda co-host. Because that way, Linda, you can see the active polls.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm gonna keep, so my Casey case is me, but I'm running the presentation from Zoom Agave, so I'm just gonna rename that.
We didn't get any backgrounds, right?
No, somebody named Tegan McLean just joined. Is that someone?
She's part of it. She's part of our rec group.
Okay, I'll let her in. In 1 second. Let me rename presenter.
Good morning, Linda.
Hi, Leak.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Casey. At first, I thought like, why we include our inspectors? Our inspector also named Casey. Say, why we include her that?
It's going to be a very interesting meeting. We're going to talk about park inspections.
That's correct.
No, Casey's going to be our behind-the-scenes magician for this. You know, it's like.
Don't jinx it. Okay, Linda, I'm going to have you rename. Why don't you capitalize Linda and Gates, and then maybe do a little slash that says Gates, kind of like I did, so it's clear our team.
Okay.
You hover over the dot.
To do that with.
I might be able to do it. Let me see if I can do it. Yeah, I can do it.
Tegan, I always love your picture. It makes me smile every time I see it. It's like, oh, that's so nice.
Thank you.
Just gotta keep projecting that out there. Oh. So Casey, do you have any way of knowing how many people have registered so far?
No, I don't. I can try. Let me dig. I'm going to mute.
No, get us all set up first, right?
They're leaving shortly, but I can hear you if you need me.
So we brought everybody in because you guys can be presenters, because then you can talk. Everybody else can't talk unless we do something to let them talk and such like that. And then Leak, I think, you know, in the first slide, maybe you just introduce yourself and your role. And if you want to introduce, is Renee going to be joining us?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to introduce your team, and then I don't see you guys having to do anything, participate in the polls. We're going to be doing some polling during it just to keep people like engaged. It's going to be a little bit, it's not going to be as factually heavy as our Park and Rec Commission meeting was. This is going to be a little bit more like at the level of the community, you know, sort of their opinions and such. So you're welcome to participate in the polls, and at the end we'll have some question and answers or chats. If there's some that you feel you want to respond to, you can just let us know and then we can respond to it. In the past, we haven't got that many questions at the ends of these. You know, by the time people are done, they are, you know, our number one goal is when they finish this, they go and take the survey. Like that they then go and talk about their park and sort of participate that level and get other people to take the survey. Because that's so much easier way to track information. So a lot of this is geared towards getting them excited to take the survey and have their friends take the surveys. Okie dokie. Otherwise, you guys can just go along for the ride, hopefully. Oh.
Hey, Linda, am I at some point switching to the interactive map and just showing people how to do that, or did we fail on that?
It depends. I think that maybe at the end, maybe we should do it. I'm worried about doing it in the middle if we lose it. So at the end at question and answer, when I'm once again going to encourage people to do that, we can show them how to do that.
Okay.
I'm just worried if we go.
I have it up. You're just going to need to let me know.
Right. I think we'll do it at the end of questions and answers and just say, so guys, we really like you to go on and do the survey, the parks you've been, see how many of the 36 you can visit in the next, you know, month to comment on, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. Good morning. So I was just trying to have my makeup on yet today. I'll do that in the break. But so public comment and just the interactiveness of our meetings have just been a question lately, not with the consultants, but just in general. So how are they going to be able to, Q&A during the town hall?
Well, we're actually going to do some polling.
Okay.
So that they actually can be, we have, I think, 5 or 6 polling questions, and some of them are just engaging, like, do you know how many parks there are and such like that. And then they will be able to put chats in as we go through. So we'll be building a list of questions when we get to the end.
Got it. Okay. So they'll use the chat. Okay.
They're
Perfect.
going to use chat, and they're going to use, yeah, we're going to talk to them about that, chat and raise hand. And then we're having the polling, because I think it just gets people, once they start participating, it's easier to get in participating. So we're trying to have some low level participation, you know, like it's easy. How many parks do you think there are? You know what I mean? That's
700. Yes. Feels like it. And then
you don't get to answer. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I won't. I'm going to stay quiet. Otherwise it's a distraction. So then also we're going to cover parks. We'll also cover programs as well, right? We've got some stuff in there.
We've got some stuff about programs. Once again, a little bit of questions and some polling about programs, but not a ton, because it's really better if they do that through the surveys. Do you know what I'm saying? But we have stuff there. I have something about programs and events, just because I don't think people understand when they're responding to the parks plan that it's that stuff too. I don't think they get that the recreation is also part of this.
Yeah. We also, and that's actually a really nice little segue. So one of the things that we deal with, and I just saw that Tegan popped on, is social services. And so we do a lot with, now more than ever, you know, resources and case management and, you know, food insecurities and domestic abuse and elder abuse. Is there any way, not changing any slides or anything, just giving them a teaser so that in the chat box we get suggestions or needs of the community that they think we could provide?
I totally can include that. Give me a little bit what you want to say, because I don't want them to get confused, like they're calling you if they're having, you know, a police emergency. So what?
Yeah. So if they don't know where their next meal is going to come from,
right.
if they are contemplating, you know, suicide, if they find out that their teen is cutting and is doing self-harm, if they find out that their neighbor is being abused by her grandson, you know, those are things that we already deal with. We deal a lot with child abuse as well, but we have a new social services coordinator that's starting in a couple weeks. And as this pandemic has continued,
I know
rec and community services departments have really taken over and become more integral in social service provision for the communities, whereas the counties were primarily the only provider. Now cities are stepping up and seen as being you know, a player in those services. And our council is very, 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 very into that role.
Yeah.
They don't care that the line is blurred between a city and a county when it comes to those types of things.
So if somebody might really pick up on this, so I will share this with, is there anything I should say, like, and you can reach out to the social services at this number, or is there anything specific about that? Or, you know, like if somebody keys on this, what can I say to them? What can we?
If they wanted to know today who to call, then right now Tegan heads social services, so it would be reaching out. The person starts in 2 weeks. We do have a case manager. That number is 586-3405.
So I'm trying to think about this. So I'll share, like, you know, Parks and Recreation is more than just parks. It's programs, events, and actually during COVID really have expanded their social services and done it, like, so talk about it. And if this is something you have an issue or a question about, do you want, maybe I should say, like, you might want to enter something in the chat room and we'll, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe that feels more, you know, send a little note to us in the chat room and we'll direct you to somebody to contact you, or we'll figure out something like that.
Or just what are services that you would like to see provided to you or the community? Because I think when we, well, I don't think, I know when we go to council, this is a section they're going to want to hear about.
Okay. Yeah, and frankly, we haven't been asking a lot of questions about that. I mean, we could go in, I always worry about when you add a question to survey that's been running for 2 months and stuff like that. But you know what we could do? We could do a focus group on this.
Yeah, that would be good. I think that would be really good.
One of the things I was thinking about at the end of, like we talked about some focus groups, if you have interest in participating in a focus group or you have a topic you think would be important to do a focus group on, and I might say, we're thinking about doing a focus group on other community services about like, you know, for mental health and resources.
Yeah.
We could do that. You know what I mean? That might be a way to introduce, because I feel like when we do these focus groups, I get so much better information. You know what I mean? And I can, it's a tool. Otherwise I'm like, okay, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, that would be great. I think it would be nice, a nice piece to this puzzle. And then just for everyone, just remember the department name is Recreation and Community Services.
Okay.
We are not Parks and Rec. We are, I mean, we are, but we're not in name.
I know. Okay. So sometimes I do that too, because it's like I'm Park and Recreation Master Plan, and then I get.
I know. I know. I do too. Don't worry about it. I'm like, oh wait, that's not our department name. But yes, just I think that would be a nice segue if they have ideas, you know, of services they think could or should be offered or that they find valuable now.
I'm going to add a discussion of that at the end of the focus group about that we're thinking of having it, because really recognizing one of the expanding roles of the Recreation Community Service Department is this community service aspect.
Correct.
How about that?
Right. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Cool. I'm excited. Tegan, do you know how many people signed up for today?
I don't know.
We had 15 through us, but I know that they also could have signed up directly through Gates. So I don't know if they have additional folks.
Yeah, we're crossing our fingers. We got a real spike in the survey after the focus groups. Did you see that?
Oh no, I haven't seen Lehack usually.
Yeah, right. They
numbers.
After the focus groups, you know, because we sort of died off, and all of a sudden we got a lot more response. It was interesting.
Nice. Good.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a way, like I'm starting even to rethink with some other communities I'm using, emphasize a little bit more focus groups as opposed to these big town halls, because they're too, it's what we used to do, right? You know, at community parks and stuff, but it's not working quite the same here.
Right.
And people's willingness to participate in focus groups is much higher now, because they don't have to drive someplace. Like we work at their convenience. So
exactly.
It's just this whole switch world. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, even I got up this morning and I was like, oh my gosh, in the other worlds, I would have had to like go in and, you know, it would have been like a 4-hour ordeal, you know, and not ordeal, but you know, and then, you know, and then come home and the day's half over and, you know, then you feel like taking a nap and the whole day's done.
Now you can still be getting your coffee. You can like, you have to get dressed from the top down.
Right.
Totally true.
Yeah.
I went through the same thing. I was like, I'm nervous to run this, but at least I don't have to physically be anywhere other than the downstairs of my own home.
And when it's done for everybody participating. It's not like you have to go get in your car, go get gas, go, you know, it's like when you're done, you turn it off and you walk in and get a cup of coffee, you know? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I guess that's the silver lining to this whole thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just us learning how to adapt to it. That's why I said I'm switching to much more focus groups to some other things, because it's just, people are burned out on community meetings. And,
well, it's just more interpersonal communication. And frankly, you get more depth in those. Well, in my opinion.
And when we had that teen meeting, and those teens, a couple of them were like, I don't know anybody, and the other ones, I'll be your friend, and they were connecting. I mean,
oh, that's so nice.
It was just like, oh my gosh. And because a lot of times 2 of them, I guess, had moved to the area more recently. And of course, their parents figure when school starts, they'll meet people and make their friends. Well, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just like, oh my goodness. So.
Well, and I guess that's not cool, per my daughter, to actually have your face or your camera on while you're in class. So often you're just a black screen with your name at the bottom.
Right.
And then it's special circumstances where your video and your audio are both on, I think, when you take a test. So even if you're in class, you're not really seeing anybody, because
Mhm.
if you're seen, then you're uncool. So like, no, nobody wants that. So
Lehack's the only cool one on this call.
that's right. That's right.
We're so nerdy.
I know. I guess Lee Hack's like, too cool for school down there at the bottom
He
of
was
that.
there. He had a cool virtual background.
That's right. He did. There he is. Is he coming back?
I'm here.
If you harass someone enough, they usually come around.
We shamed you.
Well, good. I'm excited. If there's 15, 20, then it's almost like a little focus group.
Well, and if it turns out and we go through and we end up with a small focus group, then maybe we'll dial down on this social services question or something else that sometimes in the chats you can just see a lot of people are saying, what are we doing about dogs? And, okay, we're gonna have a dog focus group now.
Yeah. And then do we have a plan for Zoom bombers? Just
Not
troll.
really.
Okay.
The way it's set up is the only people who can talk or share their video are the people who I promote to panelists. So they have to be invited in. And right now, the only other person I'll add is Michael
Silvera. Yeah. Okay.
So nobody else is able to participate really unless they raise their hand and then I can unmute them.
Got it. Okay.
Since it's the webinar platform, it's pretty hard for anyone other than us to really do anything.
All right.
Knock on wood.
Okay. Yes. Not
I do kind of think a Zoom bomber would be really fun, but
okay.
maybe there's a time and a place for that.
Only if they're in a park or
Yeah, exactly.
or in a program or something.
Yeah. They're walking a dog.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So now that everybody's here, if you have to get up and go to the bathroom or go get your cup of coffee or whatever, we just want, it's like you want everybody to be live when people start coming in, because sometimes they come in 5 minutes early,
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna do all of those things. So
I'm gonna mind the store, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Okay.
All right.
Oh. Casey, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. So what is I was going to volunteer to have Rusty and Quincy come over today, but probably they're just going to take a nap, right? Both of them.
Probably, yeah. That would be my guess.
So next weekend at Clear Lake, Robert and Caroline going with their 2 girls, and their girls have each invited a friend. And they planned on camping anyway, because the girls just thought that was going to be fun. But I thought I'd run that by you if that was like, oh, that's going to be too many people for me.
Okay, I'll ask Rusty. I don't really care, but I'll ask Rusty.
Mm-hmm. I went out to, I went walking with Caroline yesterday, and Michaela joined us. So we ended up at the Vine for, a glass of wine and an hors d'oeuvre. And it was just fun to talk to Michaela. It's a very different viewpoint of the world, right? At that age, it's like, so I realize that I don't get that much interaction with people of different ages sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
This is kind of nice because you do the polls and it gives me, well, I guess I'm talking to her, but it gives me a few minutes to collect, okay, my next thoughts are.
Yep. Okay, no attendees yet.
I love Tegan's background. I want a fun background.
Lots of parks to pick from.
I know, it's just, I got to get it together to do it, right? You know, and every time I end these, it's like, oh, right, I didn't do that last time. Oh, well. I'm so always focused on the messaging and like the little tweaking right up to the last minute of like, let's have that social services in, which is great. I like it, but and I always forget that other part.
Linda, you could tidy the books behind you over
I
your
actually
right shoulder.
tidied them a little bit already. The only way to tidy them is to maybe eliminate it.
Well, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's just the ones that are crooked that kind of command my attention.
Bothering you the most? Oh. Does that look better?
I don't know. I can't see.
Does that look better?
Yeah.
Turn it a little bit that way, get rid of that corner.
Yeah.
All right.
We need to get you a plant to put right there.
Oh, yeah. I got to tell you, I have so many,
Big.
you know, every project has its own file kind of thing right there next to me. And so,
Okay, so we have an Alan Thomas attendee. Great. I'm going to go on mute, let people start coming in. Guys, let me know in the chat if there's anyone else we want to elevate to panelists. Other than that, I'm going to let people just start to come in. And Linda, you just tell me when you want to start clicking through slides, okay?
okay. Well, I don't think we'll start before 10. So we got 7 minutes.
That's fine. I'm just letting you know we had an attendee and then I'm going to mute.
Excellent. Welcome, welcome. Hello and welcome, folks, to our virtual town home meeting. We're going to be waiting just a few more minutes, some more people joining, so give them a couple minutes to join in before we get started. But thank you all so very much for taking an hour out of your Saturday morning to help us out with this project. So you still have time to grab your cup of coffee before we get started. Wondering if it's going to eventually that rain is going to come in or not. I keep looking around and checking for it. Sure would be nice to just get a little bit to get this last vestiges of ash and smoke out of the air. But not so much we can't use our parks. Want to save everybody plenty of time to get to their parks today. I wonder how many people are attending this meeting in their pajamas. Well, get your kids, get them out of bed, bring them down here so they can input in this meeting. You can be snuggling in your lap while you do it. So Liak, do you want to maybe introduce yourself and welcome folks to the meeting? And people can continue to join as we sort of go through the initial introductions and such.
Okay, sounds good. So good morning, everyone. Please allow me to welcome you to the Park and Recreation Master Plan first virtual town hall meeting. My name is Liha Iem, an associate civil engineer with engineering department, design and construction divisions, and I am also the project manager for the Park and Recreation Master Plan update. We also have a few other city staff members joining us today. So we have Michael Severa, he's the CIP manager with engineering department. Renee Lorenzen, directors of Recreation Community Services, and Tegan McGlenn, assistant directors of Recreation Community Services. And last but not least, basically Gate and associate consultant that the city have retained to assist us with the update of this master plan. Gate and associate have like a lot of experience in working on this type of master plan for many different agencies throughout the region. So we are really looking forward to this first virtual town hall meeting. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to share with us during our presentations or after. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liak. That's great. Casey, can I have the next slide? So as Liak mentioned, I'm with Gates and Associates. I'm Linda Gates. I'm joined today by Casey Case, who is our doing the behind the scenes administrating of the project. Our consultant team also includes Matrix Consulting, who's been looking at fees, your recreation programs and fees associated with those recreation programs, because it's a comprehensive look at your whole city. And I am so excited to be here. Gates' motto is, we get people outside, and how best to get people outside is through a great park and recreation master plan system. So I'm very excited to be here today. Casey, next slide. So we're going to be doing a presentation kind of polling format. If during the presentation at the bottom you see a little chat box, if there's a question you have, you can enter it in the chat box or raise your hand, and we will either save some of the chat for the end question and answer, or if there's a specific question on a topic, we'll start. Casey will be watching for that as we go through the presentation. At the end, then we'll open it up to questions and answers and such. So, and if you don't know, if something happens in your screen, you're having a problem, send a little message to her and she'll try and figure it out and get you plugged back in again. Okay? Because we want you, you're going to have to work through this presentation. So I want to make sure you're all lined up. So next slide. So the purpose of the meeting today is we want to sort of share with you some of our efforts to date on the Park and Rec Master Plan. We've been working on this plan since the beginning of the year. But really, a Park and Recreation Master Plan is only as good as how well it is tailored to that specific community. So we're gathering input from you about the things that you value in your system and the things you would like to see more of in your system. So it's really about hearing from you today. Next slide. So a Park and Recreation Master Plan, and this is an update, creates a roadmap to guide future improvements to programs, existing parks, planned parks over the next 10 years. So it's an incremental implementation process. We first start by understanding what you have and then looking at what you need so that we can create this plan. I think it's really interesting doing this plan in this period of COVID and shelter in place and such, because I think we've all come to really appreciate our park system and what they provide for us. And I think it's also an interesting time to reflect, because I don't know that everyone will ever go back to working, commuting and working 40 hours a week. And I think many people will continue to work at least part-time from home and maybe actually start using their park system in a different way and connecting with it differently. So it's really fascinating time to really think about what parks will look like in the future and what we want them to look like. Next slide. So this is the first test of participation in a poll. And so I wonder, some of you, as I said, are home with your significant other or your children participating here. So if you could take a few minutes and just tell me how many people are with you today. Wow, people jumped right on. It seems like a lot of people. Oh, some people have a friend joining them to participate in the poll. So, that may be interesting as you argue over the next step questions and such. We'll see how well people are aligned. So, but for the most part, I think, give it a few more seconds to see if anybody else would like to share their information here. Okay, Casey, you want to share the poll results here now? So most of you have joined singly, but a couple people have somebody there that they're going to be arm wrestling the answers to the next questions with. So that was the easy one. People, if anybody had a problem taking the poll, if they want to send a chat through real quick, we'll figure out how to make it easy for you, okay? Thank you. Next slide. So always when you start the next phase of a master plan, it's kind of nice to go back and reflect on what's happened over the last 10 years. So in 2008, there was a Park and Recreation Master Plan that set up some goals, and look at all the great things that came out of that. Over $26 million was invested in improvements, some of which, the Milpitas Sports Center, new skate park opening soon, different kinds of parks. There are improvements in a number of playgrounds. So I think you can see how that input that the community provided 10 years ago has benefited you. So now you're going to pay it forward and share with us your vision so that going forward, the city can create such great investments again. Next slide. So I want to talk about, so this Park and Rec Master Plan is part of a whole network of plans and policies within the city that support each other. So the general plan, which is being updated right now, sets out a lot of guiding principles, two of which I think are really, there's a number of guiding principles about parks that shows how highly Milpitas values their park and recreation system, but a couple that are really important to think about. And one of it is serving the needs of all residents. So when we think about parks, we want to make sure they're not only a comfortable place for, a toddler or an adolescent playing on a playground, but also someplace that seniors enjoy, that teens feel comfortable meeting, that all residents who've lived in the community for many years and live in a typical suburban environment have reasons to go to the park, as well as some of the newer to higher density development around the BART station where people may be looking for different things in their park system. So we want to make sure that it meets the needs of a range of users. The other thing that I think is really important in Milpitas is we're not inventing any new land. So with all places, we need to work collaboratively both with the county and the school district about sort of sharing recreation facilities and sort of maximizing the public dollar and the public benefit from these places. This is where in many communities they're recognizing this kind of partnerships, and certainly in Milpitas already number of sports uses are accommodated in schools, and you've got the dog park up at the regional park and such like that. So that kind of collaboration I think is a hallmark of Milpitas, that positive collaboration. Next slide. So as we look into the future, often we look a little bit back to the past just to see what's happening. So one of the trends is that you look at is your population is aging a little bit. This is very common in communities. People love Milpitas and they want to stay. So it's aging, but also, as I said, your new population often will be living maybe in higher density housing where they're looking for their parks to maybe fulfill some of the roles that the backyard used to fulfill for them. So things that like gathering with friends or you know, even places for children to play, they may use parks more than maybe some of the older residents in the traditional neighborhoods. Parks are a great place where all members of the community come together. Milpitas also has a very culturally diverse population, which is amazing and fantastic. You have people from India and Vietnam and China and all places, all contributing their own recreation needs into the system and enriching the park and recreation system. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, and the general plan looks at it, what traditionally Milpitas has tried to do is for every 1,000 people who live in the city, they try to provide 5 acres of parkland. But they've recognized, once again, because we're not growing any more land, that sometimes we cannot get 5 acres. So what they've done is they said, well, we can also, some of our recreation needs are sometimes met by the private sector when like a new development goes in and builds their own swimming pool or puts a playground within their development. But we still want to accumulate, but they still cause dedication of fees so that we get that richness in our park system. So right now, on an average, you have about 2.2 acres of parkland for 1,000 residents. So one of the things that is being discussed is the idea of experience over acres. So rather than having 5 acres, making sure that all the needs are being met within the parkland you have or you will acquire. There'll be new parks being built in the city over the next 10 years. And so it's like being smart and making sure that parks are really serving the needs of the community, that it's exactly what we want, that they look and feel like they want. So really it's like quality over quantity, or as we say, experience over acres, is one of the things we're thinking about right now, which is why we need a lot of input from the community about the things that really are important in the park system and make it really special. Next slide. So I'm just curious, how many parks do you think there are in the Milpitas park system? So we're going to take a little poll here. And yeah, and so it's like how many you think there are, and then how many you visited would be interesting, and maybe setting a goal for visiting a few more this month. So that will be very interesting. So I think everybody has voted at this point in time. In case you want to show the results. So that's pretty interesting, like a third, pretty good, guys. Actually, there are 36 parks in the Milpitas Park and Recreation System. And I would challenge you to, you know, it's just like I have on my roadmap to visit more national parks. I think you should visit more city parks and sort of explore them maybe over the next month or year or whatever. It's fun. So next slide. So here's where they are. So one of the things that we've been looking at is we visited every one of those parks and looked at them to understand not only what you have, but the potential of what they could be, or maybe something that's being underutilized. One of the things that we look at is how things are distributed, because you don't want all your basketball courts over in one part of the city and all your, you know, tennis courts over here. So it's really looking at each quadrant of the city within a reasonable distance. Residents have access to a range of different uses. Not every park is going to have every use, but the feeling that, you know, if you wanted to play tennis or basketball court, it would be within a reasonable proximity for you to go there. So it's one of the things we've been looking at is distribution to achieve parity. Next slide. But I said we've also gone to each one of the parks and looked at what amenities are there, what conditions things are in, where there may be a potential to add additional amenities, and that type of thing. This is one of the things that is really key is understanding how to maximize the opportunities within your existing parks and make them great. Next slide. The Park and Rec, it's actually the Recreation Community Service Department that manages and programs your park system. So parks are more than just parks, but they're programs and their events, and actually even expanding more and more into community services. I always admire recreation departments, how quickly they pivot. They have online programs now because obviously they can't meet in person, and coding for fun, online soccer drills, math academies, mommy and daddy music classes. I was like, oh my goodness, look at all this stuff that's available online. It's amazing. And as I said, they're also expanding into social services. If you need a resource to find out where, if you're worried about where your next meal comes, or you're worried about your teen, it's just the mental health, maybe you think they might be cutting or something, you're concerned about child abuse, they actually are stepping up to provide resources to people within the community. I mean, they definitely are, recreation community services oriented. So even though there's a lot of discussion about parks, it also is about those programs and the events. Next slide. One of the things I mentioned early on, Matrix Consulting has been looking at is sort of the different programs you offer in Milpitas versus some other cities and the fees that you charge. This was something that the City Council really wanted to look at, because where possible, certain programs we want them to pay for themselves. Other programs the city is willing to sort of underwrite the cost of, and sort of like looking at where we compare with other cities. So this is just some peer cities, looking at Milpitas compared to Fremont, Mountain View, Redwood City, San Jose. In some programs, the fees Milpitas charge are lower than other cities, like for rental of a small picnic area. Other places, maybe it's a Tappan Valley, it's higher than some cities. It's an interesting comparison. There actually is going to be a presentation on this sort of idea of programs, the fees we charge for programs, and potential cost recovery, a City Council meeting on October 20th. If you want to tune into that one, it could be pretty interesting, I think, for some information about your programs and how because your city wants to also be fiscally responsible, which is what you want to. Next slide. So I'm wondering if you are participating in, historically, maybe not during online, but have historically participated in Milpitas recreation programs, and if so, or if not, what were some of the barriers to participating? So we're going to poll right now, and let's see where we're coming out. And you can vote for more than one thing, I think, on here, can't you, Casey? Yeah. So those people who are more than one, they can each cast a vote. That's okay. Give a few more minutes. Okay. I think everybody who's voted right now. So Casey, you want to share the results? Well, it's good. A number of people have already participated in programs. I like that. Some people, cost is an issue, and so you may want to tune into the meeting on the October 20th, but I also think you can reach out directly to the city through their community services and even talk to them about that. And if you don't know what's available, go Google it, go online. I'm shocked at the number of ones I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd like to take that. I'd like to take that. Believe me, and during COVID, sometimes it's a good time to try something that you've never experienced it. Okay. So I'd love to see more people try that out. And if there's nothing of interest to you, what would be? I have never met a recreation department that is more interested in finding about people want to have. So they are all ears, okay? Next slide, honey. So as I mentioned, we started this project at the beginning of the year, December, actually, at the tree lighting pop-up booth before everybody went into shelter. So we actually got to talk to some people directly, which was delightful. We've continued we've run 2 surveys to find out the kinds of things people wanted. And we have a survey going on right now. I want to chat with you a little bit more about, because after this meeting, I'm hoping you'll go online at sometime in the next week or so and take that survey, because it's a little more in depth. We also had the opportunity to talk to a couple of focus groups, which I'll share some of the results of that. And this virtual town hall that we're having now, we will also really repeat the same town hall on the 14th. So if you share with some friends and they're like, I would like to see what's happening, they can participate in that town hall. The town hall meeting is also being recorded, but obviously in a recording you can't participate, and we love participation. So if you have some friends, I would encourage them, and encourage your teens and your parents and your grandmother. We want to hear from everyone what it is they want to see in the city. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we've talked to over 700 people at this time through pop-up events and focus groups that have been done in multiple language and such. And I wanted to share with you some of the things that we're hearing, because either you're like, oh yeah, that's what I hear, or I have something else which would even more encourage you to add your input. People love the Milpitas park system. They love the playgrounds, the swim system, the Portsville, very positive input to the park system. Things they would like to see improved were better playgrounds, more updated. They love the community events. There are already tons of community events, indoor sports fields and such, lighting and such. I'm going to take a pause for a minute, because we've had a couple people ask questions and I'd love to get those answered. So Casey, can you pull up some of the questions that are coming up and we can try and address those?
Yeah, so we've had someone ask, what is the future of our theater program? And is the theater a part of this plan? Is there anyone who wants to discuss that now? Is that relevant for our group today?
I think that actually that's something we can discuss during the question and answer, and I'm going to let someone from the city respond to that a little bit. So if you will hold that to the end, and they'll kind of get their act together on that. What else is going on, Casey? What else are people asking about?
So we have a comment. We used to have nice parks. However, they are not kept up like in the past. Also, the restrooms are dirty and have no soap, rarely have toilet paper.
That input is very much appreciated too. And I think that people, yes, love the parks, but we've heard the maintenance comment a couple times too. So thank you for sharing that. And that's the kind of input we need to have.
And then there's also been a request to share some of the links. I will make sure those get shared. My computer is dominated by our presentation at this moment, but when we reach the question and answer, I'll make sure those links are available to everybody in the chat box. Also, one more, you combine tennis and pickleball, only one park is dual use.
Thank you. And yes, that's one of the things we will be looking at, where dual use makes sense and not. As I said, going forward, this is something we've been having a lot of sports field users, the idea to be able to share uses in space. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on if you like dual use, if you dislike dual use, and we're looking at those kinds of things. Anybody else?
That's what I see, right? Lack of marketing, a comment for lack of marketing. So I think that was in relation to the awareness of the program opportunities.
Ah, okay. All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Yes. They may be calling you to inquire about that. Just kidding. Okay.
So one more, are walking trails, bike paths, pedestrian overpath a part of Parks and Recreation's responsibilities or a different agency of the Milpitas city?
Well, currently there is a bike and ped master plan being developed that integrates. The city, for the most part, manages or controls those. Different agencies sometimes in different trails and paths. But if you're interested in what's being planned, there is a bike and ped master plan available on the website. And so you can and they also are having some meetings that you can plug into if you have some places you think that we need some linkage. But we're trying to integrate the parks plan with that plan, because often one of the main issues for people getting to parks often is accessibility, the ability to walk there or bike there and not always have to take a car. So that's one of the things that's very important. And I think bicycles have had a heyday in the last 6-8 months. You know, the idea that we want to be able to get places other than by the automobile.
Also, are upcoming school district plans being considered with park renovations for joint use?
We're definitely, a collaboration with the school district is critical to making the balance of the plans. Obviously, they have some very pressing needs because they're not necessarily growing any more schools and such like that. So, but that kind of collaboration is one of the key issues that's coming out of the Park and Rec Master Plan.
I also want to let people know, I do think typing into the chat is great. You can also use the Q&A, which is great. You also have the ability to raise your hand, in which case then I, as the panelist, can unmute you if you'd like to talk. However, we can reserve that for question and answer in the end as well.
This is great. I'm so happy to see everybody engaging. This is fabulous.
I'm not seeing any more questions at the moment.
Okay, I'll keep going for a few minutes and then but reserving plenty of time to chat at the end. Okay.
Great.
Next. So we're curious how you found out about this town hall meeting, and the person was talking about advertising and marketing. This is, you know, what are the communication channels that are working in Milpitas and such? So this is another polling question. If you could just share with me, and there may have been more than one way you heard about it. And I think there's a couple more people we're waiting for to chime in here. Okay, all right, so everybody's sort of registered, I think. Okay, Casey, you want to close the poll? So it feels like some of the traditional methodologies of reaching out via email and from a family and friend is what's working here. We're trying to use more and more social media because we're trying to broaden our net. But this means to me that, you know, it's like every one of you has to tell a friend, because that seems to be always from a trusted source is the best way to hear about it. So if you could just think after this meeting of a couple people to share participating in this meeting or the survey, that would be fabulous. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. So I wanted to tell you about the survey that's going on right now. And it's an interactive survey. And what it is not only there are a couple of general questions, but you can go on to a specific park site and that's maybe near you or you visited and provide specific comments about that park and how you'd like to see it improved. So, after this meeting, I'm going to encourage you to go on to that interactive map and give some of those detailed comments, like the idea of, you know, can we share tennis and pickleball together and such, like that kind of detailed comment would be very helpful. And then, as I say, remind your friends there'll be another virtual meeting on the 14th too. That will be a repeat of this. You don't have to participate again as long as you take that survey. Okay, next slide. So I thought if you've gone online and you've gone to Gale Memorial Park, there would be some ideas and things that you could participate and comment on and things you wanted to see. But we're kind of monitoring as it's coming up and noticing like some uses that people are interested in adding into your park system, like pump track is coming up at, you know, Murphy Park, and fenced dog park at, you know, Foothill Park, or community gardens at different places and such like that. So it's really interesting for us to not only look at it community-wide, but specific improvements people would like to see in specific parks. And certainly this is an area where if you found a park where you're having some maintenance issues, you can comment on those specifically and we'll collect all that. So please participate in that. I wanted to share with you some of the city-sponsored events because, as I mentioned, it's not just about parks and not just about programs, but also the kind of coming together socialization. And frankly, in the focus groups and stuff, more and more we're realizing how much people value their parks as a way to know their neighbors and to gather with friends and such like that. So these are kind of events that the city traditionally would be holding. They've made some adaptations to be able to hold these in virtual manners. There's going to be a pumpkin in the park drive-through that's that if you want to go online and check it out. So I think they're doing an amazing job of trying to keep some of these programs and community connections going on. So once again, I visit the city website, the Park and Recreation, or the Recreation and Community Services website, to find out about the events that they're still holding. Next slide. One of the things that we've been doing in this world, though, is actually reaching out to some focus groups to deep dive on some specific topics. One of them is organized sports. It's often, sports often are a challenge in cities because they take up so much space, and they have to be on flat land, and where you can squeeze a playground and our picnic area in, and sometimes to a different area, they need flat land. And there was a park master plan developed sort of for the Sports Center Cadoza Park recently, and which seemed to address a lot of those needs. And we met with some of the user groups to talk about how going forward. And we mentioned the thing about schools, like working on joint use agreements with the schools and getting some clarity on what can be relied on for fields in the future versus not relied on is something that we need to really be looking at. They need amenities like restrooms, parking, storage. It's not just about having the fields, but those other kinds of areas. The idea that if more fields were lighted or even using synthetic turf, that they could be used more hours of the day, which would allow different sports to use the same field or more intensely used fields. With synthetic turf, you don't have the wear, like a lawn like wears out and such. So the idea that we're going to have to look at ways to maximize usability of our fields. One thing that was really clear with all these sports groups is the genuine idea of collaboration, like sharing a batting cage between cricket pitch and, between cricket and baseball or something, or maybe joint concessions and sharing fields, that idea that they need to work collaboratively to make this work in Milpitas. So that was a really interesting focus group we were able to talk to. Next slide. We also wanted to reach out to teens, because often teens, once you reach a certain age where you're not playing on the playground, are not using parks as intensely. And we wanted to sort of explore with our teen population what they'd like to see in parks and such. And, one of the things they basically said that they wanted more uses that were kind of geared to them, ideas of climbing walls or table tennis. They wanted a swing, a big swing that they could use. They commented on some of the barriers to their using the parks as they're kind of aging and not that attractive. They'd like to see Wi-Fi and kind of nicer site furniture. They want that look and feel. Interesting enough, they also really wanted the parks to have a natural feel and sustainability. They're very interested in that sort of it being a green space with habitat and a retreat from sort of urbanization. As you can imagine, they really like the idea of social activities that might be planned, programs, maybe one night food trucks come to a park, or an astronomy stargazing night. They noted use conflicts. A lot of times the pathways weren't wide enough for a skateboarder and walkers, and so then they felt like they couldn't skate, or like a basketball court might be dominated by one user group. So they're really sensitive to sort of feeling outsiders in a lot of the parks. Apparently there's a lot of safety concerns for them using the parks, like parents, are concerned about their children going to the park unsupervised, but they have a great need to be able to socialize at the park. They mentioned too that a lot of their use happens during the summer, because during the school year, by the time they get all their homework done, it's dark and they can't use the parks. So they would like parks that maybe had a spray element for water or shade structure and such, because their intense use of parks is actually during the summer when they're not in school. Next group. We also wanted to interview some of the newer residents have moved in some of these new specific plan areas where maybe they're looking to their parks to satisfy more uses and such like that. And one of their key things was they use their parks to meet their neighbors. I mean, and what a challenge to move into a new neighborhood and then have all the social distancing and such. Going forward, they would love like exercise stations that were kind of clustered together so they can kind of be working out, socially distanced from the next person, doing push-ups or something, so they can get together. Planned activities like a yoga in the park, Zumba in the park, movies in the park, those kind of community gathering things, even at neighborhood parks. A lot of pressure on facilities like the tennis courts. Everybody wants to use the tennis courts at the same time, and there's no system for scheduling them. They'd like other uses besides the you know, like, so they liked adult swings too, table tennis, paddleball. So it's, in their case, it was a couple of tennis courts that were the main focus of that park, and they needed more uses. They also like rental spaces because when they gather for birthday parties or with friends, they need to use those facilities, but often there's a problem when they rent it with parking. So they thought maybe a permit parking linked to reserving the rental space. They'd like to see more shaded group picnic structures and such, but they really like the access to some kind of rental facility in their neighborhood parks. Next slide. So actually, before we take this poll for 1 second, so we actually are looking at conducting some more focus groups. And if anyone has any interest in being part of a focus group or has a topic for a focus group, one of the ones we're thinking about is sort of, as I said, this expanded role in social services. What do people need from their recreation and community services department in terms of, you know, support for access to food, access to, you know, reporting issues, coping with a teenager they're having problems with and such like that. So that might be a focus group we're looking at, but we also might look at some other focus groups too. So if you have interest in a topic or being in a focus group, please let us know. But this is actually our closing question is, what are some of the barriers you might have to using Milpitas parks? Now, if you use them regularly, then great, and I love it, but what are some of the issues and what can we do to have you get more value out of this resource you're paying for? Because frankly, your tax dollars pay for it. It should benefit you. Okay, a couple more minutes here. I think I have, give a couple more people a chance to vote. It's interesting. So a lot of people use the parks regularly, which I love. Other people are using private facilities and things in other cities, which is interesting. Clearly a lot of concerns about, so we're sharing the results. There are a lot of concerns about social distancing and worn facilities and such like that in this time period. So, but some nothing of interest to me, but not that many. So that's good. So at least our program is working, but I'd like to find out what we could do to interest you in our park system. So now we're to question and answer. So I think if any more hand raises and chats came up, otherwise we can unmute you. Okay, got some people who just like to ask questions. And then the city, I was reserving some time to answer the performance theater question here. And I don't know if someone from the city wants to tackle that one.
There's a couple of others as well, maybe while some of the city unmutes if you want, or if you need me to help you with that. So one is, when are the pools at the sports center opening is one of the questions.
Sure, I could take that. The pools actually have opened for lap swim and water exercise, and they opened last week. We are really restricted right now by public health orders on the number of people that can be in at a time, but we're taking reservations right now for people who would like to swim with us, and we will open it up and add more capacity as soon as we're able to do so safely. After the chat is over, I'll put my email in the chat box, and folks can send me an email and let me know if you want a link to the pool registrations. Thanks.
Great. Also, is there Wi-Fi in the parks?
I don't believe that we have Wi-Fi in all the parks now.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay. What is the 1,000 per resident acreage compared to other cities, and why has the acreage been reduced from 5 acres to 2.2 acres?
Okay, so 5 acres per 1,000 is almost a statewide that people strive as a goal. And one of the things we're looking at, and we actually looked and compared ourselves to other cities. So what we're achieving in the urban area around us, you know, Fremont, Redwood City and such like that, we're doing a good job. It's not in this PowerPoint, Casey, it's in another because we
Oh.
actually did a comparison. One of the things that we're doing as part of this project is we're do what's called benchmarking, and we compare our acreage to other cities. We compare how many soccer fields we have to other cities, how many basketball courts, not because we want to match them, because obviously Milpitas is its own place, but just to understand where we are. So the acreage we have actually is not bad, not great, but not bad. One of the things Milpitas has that's really many other cities don't have is the access to all the regional parks and open space around them. And many cities are having to sort of accomplish their open space within their park system as well. So we actually, being a little bit lower, makes sense because we only have to accommodate the like true park uses within that space. But this is a challenge that many cities are facing of a certain amount of parkland, and more people move into the community. The new specific plans that are coming out, and each one of those specific plans, they are requiring them to set aside a certain amount of land for parks to ensure that we don't continue to sort of dilute our park acreage ratios and such like that. But it will probably be in the next couple of weeks. You can go online. We'll be publicizing some of the existing conditions, and you can look at how you compare to surrounding cities.
Okay. There was also a comment that the distance to the parks is an issue, and to prioritize the park on McCandless. Then a question, is there a potential for city sports parks to open for practice use only, as other nearby cities have opened their facilities for rentals?
I guess I could take that one as well. At the moment, Milpitas is not open for field rentals. However, you know, individuals and families can go out and participate with their family unit. The county health orders right now restrict the types of use that can happen on fields. Games are not allowed, and activities where there's lots of exchanging of equipment. So if you were, you know, running drills or something, that kind of practice is okay, but mock scrimmages, that kind of thing is not. Thank you.
Okay, so I see we've raised hand, and the question about the access to the McKinless Park, the Milpitas Metro is actually looking at studying opportunities for overcrossings and such to get better access to the park. And if you want to look at the specific plan that's evolving there, that might answer some of your questions. And then I saw somebody had a raised hand.
Sure. So I'm going to allow to talk, the raised hand. Hi there. It's requesting to unmute you if you'd like to talk to us with your question or comment.
Hi, my name's Jackie. So I have a couple questions, actually, if it's possible. The first question was about the theater. I put it in the chat. The second question was about the Bobby Sox solution. And my last question is about when the kids go to the sports center, there's some soccer nets, goals that are there, but they're not used for public use. It's for the different organizations that are renting the park. How possible is it to get standard goals that even the residents can use?
Thank you. I'll do my best to answer your questions. As far as the soccer nets, I don't know. We'll have to check into that, and I'll have to answer you later. My email's in the chat, so you can definitely email me. As far as the theater, I think wanted to share that we're really excited. We're trying to do our first virtual show, and auditions are coming up November 1st and 2nd. The show is, the show must go online, and it'll perform in January. So we're excited about that. And refresh my memory, the other one was Bobby Sox?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And I'm afraid I don't have a lot of information on the Bobby Sox one as well, but I can certainly find that for you and respond offline.
Thanks. You, Tegan.
Okay, so there's a couple more comments in the chat box. One is that question 5, so our final polling question is good, but it would be better to include another question of what would make me use the parks better? What updates or changes? think that was some great feedback. There's a question about how many residents are participating. So I can see 11 active people. We have a couple duplicates, so our accurate total is 11. We didn't get the quantities of how many people were participating on each call. So I would say at a minimum, we have 11. Okay, then another comment. There are rental facilities like the, Sal Crackleese, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, party room in Milpitas, but it is not easy to book them as they need in-person application. No online option to reserve them or to see if they're already reserved. Also, it's right next to a busy park with no parking spots. How can one realistically book that facility, and any plans to improve access to these kinds of facilities?
I think certainly hearing from you about the parking situation at South Crackleese, we're aware of that. And you're right. Right now, it would be very difficult to book a reservation, but we are hoping to move to online reservations soon. At the moment, we're not taking reservations for anything due to the pandemic public health restrictions. Thanks.
Okay, then someone says, is there a plan for the jogging track?
I'm not aware of that, but it's a great idea.
Okay,
At Sports Center?
it wasn't specified, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Okay, I think I have captured most of the things that I see in the Q&A in the chat, and I don't see any hands raised. So somebody please feel free to answer more in the chat or the Q&A, or raise your hand if you want to just talk to us directly. Oh, here we go, another one. For the parks to be used, it's critical to provide enough parking spaces. What plans are there to provide sufficient parking to leverage the parks?
That's one of the things we're going to be looking at. As I said, one of the focus groups suggested that there be some permit parking if you do rentals and such like that. It's interesting. Originally, many of the neighborhood parks were envisioned as places that people could walk to, but obviously more and more people use the parks, and some of them have to be parking. So it's one of the things we're going to have to look at. Very reluctant to give up parkland to parking, but clearly people have to be able to access it. So it's one of the issues the Park and Rec Master Plan is going to have to look at. While I'm chatting for 1 second, somebody had that great idea of what would interest me in using our parks. And if people want to throw into the chat room just a couple things like, if the parks had X, I would use them more, that would be great. I'd be very interested to see what would get you outside.
Also, is this master plan including safety to ensure marijuana usage at the park is handled?
I think it's important to know if you have safety concerns at our parks. We want to hear about that. Thank you.
Can the community be included in inputs for intermediate improvements in neighborhood parks?
Absolutely. When and if a park is slated to be improved, there actually is a community outreach process that meets with people to discuss the specific improvements to that park. What we're trying to do right now is create an overall understanding of all the improvements across the whole city park system, and then begin to tackle improving parks, individually or a few together. And in each of those processes, there would be a community outreach process to specifically discuss those improvements, the character of them, and the details of that with the community.
Somebody also commented, I would use the parks more if they had better bike and walking path connectivity around the city.
I agree.
I would love more lighting in the parks. I love going after 7 p.m. and there are drug use and alcohol consumption going on, and it's a safety concern. With the new softball fields expected to be placed at Cardoza, has the city ensured that both fields meet regulation standards?
That's not a question I know the answer to, but again, happy to look it up for you and let you know.
Many parks are being improved. Now can communication on completion dates be disclosed?
where we know completion dates, yes, we can put that, share that information. I'd have to get a list of from you of parks that you're specifically interested in and get back to you on their completion dates. Thanks.
It would be great to see more natural shade, such as trees, available in the parks.
This is Liha. I just would like to add a little bit. So I know a lot of our attendee kind of express like what is their interest in the park system, so that we can encourage them a little bit. So how about the programming? Like I know like some of the attendees say they never really aware of the programming and they never attend one. So what kind of programming that we can create so that you can participate more?
Yeah, that's another good thing if people have some thoughts of what they'd like to see the city offering. And I will share with you, in addition to taking the survey to discuss improvements at your specific parks, I think it's obviously being demonstrated the city is very interested in hearing from you and getting back to you with information such like that. So there is contact information provided in this meeting and also on the website. So if you have a question, reach out. That really trying to tailor this plan towards your specific needs. But if some people want to share some ideas of programs they'd like to see, that would be great.
Great question. Can we provide the contact details of the panelists on the call? So I know that Tegan's provided her email address. Is there any other that we should share in the chat so that people can share ideas that might come up to them after the fact?
Yep, I can provide mine as well.
Great. Thank
And
you.
then the city passes them on to Gates and Associates. Obviously, some of them the city has to answer, but they pass everything on to us. So thank you.
Okay, so Tegan's got lost. Oh, sorry, hers accidentally only went to panelists. So let me share that again. I'm going to type yours in, Tegan. Hope that's okay.
Oh, thank you.
Make sure that's
So is anybody coming up with some ideas of programs that would they'd like to see the city offering?
someone says, I'd like to see marketing efforts for programs and events increased. And also, is the deck available?
The deck at the pool, we're right now, folks are just coming in and doing their lap swim and water exercise class and leaving promptly afterwards to minimize social contact. Thanks.
Okay, sorry, there's some others coming in. Presentation, I'm guessing, is this a request to share the presentation? And you guys are also welcome to raise your hand if you're tired of typing and just want to talk to us too.
Yeah, you can just raise your hand and unmute.
Can city park and rec use the school district facilities?
We have joint use agreements with a joint use agreement with the school district and can use certain facilities. Yes.
Okay.
If I catch him.
One more. Still can't see Tegan's email. So we just added that into the chat channel. Yeah. Here. Here, I can type the answer right here.
So I think we can make the recording of this presentation available through the website too, if people would like to listen to it later on.
Yes.
But as I'm sure as soon as you get off this, you'll think of 6 programs, 7 things you want to see added to the park. Once again, reach out to the Tegan or BIAC and share those with us.
Okay. I think we are, oh, someone else came in. No? Okay, I'm not seeing anything new. So we've shared the link to the survey. We've also added Tegan and Liak's contact information, and they'll route anything relevant to us as well to the team. And we will make this presentation recording available. Well,
I have to say that I really felt like we had some great comments and questions happening here. You guys, thank you so much. This is how we do it. And please, please share with your friends the survey, share with them the other virtual town hall. If you're interested in the discussion at the city council meeting, tune into that. This is how we make it work for you. And you're investing in the people from 10 years ago made investments so that you're enjoying them, and your investment now helps the future of Milpitas, you know, paying it forward. So thank you so much. Does anybody else have any other questions?
not seeing any other questions.
All right, go jump on that survey after you get your cup of coffee or use the restroom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all your feedback. Greatly
Thank
appreciate
you guys.
Okay,
Hope to
thank
see
you,
you.
everyone.
it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Just so you all know, you're going to get kicked out in just a moment, as soon as I can navigate back to it on my screen.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great Saturday.
Tegan, thank you for being on the hot spot to answer all the questions. I'm like, I don't know when you open.
We're still live. We're still live.
You're welcome.
But it's great to be able to get those answers right on the spot, you know, so
I
great.
hope I hear from people on the ones that I wasn't able to answer so I can respond to them.
I'm
You
I'll be
guys can-
interested to see if we get some focus participants joining up. Because I think it would be good to put one together on social services programs and such.
Sure, I'd like to see that. Casey, you can send me the chat, right?
Yes, I can. I will.
Okay, perfect. Then I can at least know who asked what question.
Will do. Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
guys.